is what this judge is trying to do, and is he shooting himself in the foot by not understanding even the most basic concepts of what he's charged with, the penalties for those charges, and basically doesn't even understand that the state is the plaintiff in the case. It's really frustrating to the judge.
Well, I mean, the old adage is one who represents themselves as a fool for a client, right? So that it goes without saying, you should never represent yourself, even if you're a lawyer, much less when you're not. And what the judge is doing is going through what is called an arguello advisement, where there's being an advisement given about what the expectations are of someone who represents themselves and trying to determine whether they're going to be able to do that competently and whether they have enough, reassurance in themselves to even go forward after being admonished by the judge about how dangerous it is. So the judge will tell him how hard it is, that he's going to be held to the same standard as a regular lawyer, namely that he's going to have legal basis for his objections, that he's going to have to follow the rules of the courtroom, and he is going to have to be able to acknowledge some of these things. And it's not required that you have legal training. So he doesn't need to know what he's doing, but he has to acknowledge that he needs to know enough to be able to move forward. But what's really going on here, from what I've seen of this hearing today, is that he is starting to assert a sovereign citizen defense to this case, saying that he is not a citizen of the United States. He is a country unto himself, and thus the court has no jurisdiction over him. And that is why it's turning into a circus.
Yeah, Kurt, it's hard for me when I'm assessing it. I think he intellectually understands the questions. I mean, at certain points, she's asking him, do you hear me? And he's like, no. And she's like, you don't hear me. And she repeats it. It seems like a little game playing to me. The judge is really not in a difficult spot, but he certainly isn't cooperating with the answers. What are your thoughts about how this is all going down?
No, I think you're right about that, Bob. I think it makes it difficult for the judge. It also makes it difficult for the prosecution. I was a little surprised to see that they didn't have any objection to this, because they're going to want to preserve any potential conviction that they get. It does appear that he's playing some games. He may not be, but from what I've seen, it does appear that, often these guys will be sitting in custody waiting trial. Someone will tell them if they represent themselves, something better can happen. Maybe it can extend the trial. Maybe you can buy more time. Who knows what his motivation is? But he certainly understands what the judge is saying. And I would agree, is starting to kind of assert that you don't have jurisdiction over me. I'm a citizen of my own country, and like, I don't have to follow the rules of the court. So it's going to make it very difficult, and it's going to make this a mess going forward if he represents himself.
Well, yeah, I mean, he can't even get the basic idea of what this whole situation is right now. Can you imagine when he's getting into something like objections, complex evidence rules, examination, cross-examination, so on and so forth? But if he is game playing, Jeffrey, I was commenting to one of my colleagues just before he came on the show that I know a lot of judges are going to be basically either, one, you are not competent to represent yourself because I can't even get past the indictment or the information so that you understand the charges, or two, if he plays this game much further, she may try him in absentia.